Yeah, what's up, everybody? Great hanging out with you on this Wednesday. It is the first day of March, 2023. Hopefully, warm weather is coming our way. We're going to have daylight savings before you know it. Sun will be out a little bit later. It was out to like 6 last night, so that was kind of nice.
Oh, man.
And getting
That's
warmer.
awesome.
We're inching closer there. All right, so let's hit a couple things here, guys. So, Brian Johnson is official. Sean Desai is official. Both Howie and Nick Sirianni yesterday at the Combine acknowledged as much. So let's start with Brian Johnson. We know he's the quarterback's coach. He's 36 years old. He has a long, rich history with Jalen Hurts, dating back to Jalen being 3 years old and Brian playing for his father in the Houston area, playing high school football for his father. He takes over. He moves his way up. He has called plays before. He has been an offensive coordinator before at the college level. They have elevated a couple of guys. Alex Tanney has been promoted to quarterback's coach. He was the assistant QB coach, offensive assistant last year. Marcus Brady is now a senior offensive assistant. He was the Colts OC with Frank Reich in 21 and 22. TJ Paganetti is now the running game specialist, assistant tight end coach. Brian Johnson will call plays. So a little nugget that we did find out as well. Nick acknowledged this yesterday. They did also interview Nate Scheelhaas, who was the offensive coordinator from Iowa State. Nick and Matt Campbell, who's Iowa State's coach, have a relationship that goes way back. Those two are extremely tight, and he talked about how much respect he has for the program and the way that offense is run. He was Scheelhaas was there, I believe, with Purdy when Purdy was the quarterback there. Anyway, but that we hadn't heard any other names, so that's why that's I think of interest there on the offensive side. Also of note, and I'm going to get to Desai in 1 second, but the Eagles will get compensation if either Brian Johnson or Sean Desai are hired for head coaching gigs because of the Rooney Rule. Johnson being an African-American, Desai being an Indian-American, that they would qualify under the Rooney Rule to get compensation for those guys. All right, so there's that.
Hold on a second.
Yes.
I also did not know that Nick didn't know damn near half his staff that he hired when he got the job. I didn't know that.
In other words, that it was at the Eagles' behest, or
no? He interviewed them.
Oh,
but I thought when you interview coaches and the staff, you interview guys that you came up through, or you were around.
A lot of times you do, but you also bring in you also bring in fresh approach. You know, in a job like that, when you get that kind of job, you want to listen to any and everybody, because something may jump out at one, it may not jump out at the other. You know, so a lot of times coaches will hire assistants they're not very familiar with.
That caught me off guard, because I always think that coaching is the good old boy system. You bring your boys up through the ranks. You know what I'm saying? Like to me, that was kind of new that he said that, like, he didn't know the linebacker coach before he hired him. You know what I'm saying? Usually it's word of mouth, or somebody who knows somebody that brings them in. I did not know that. That kind of surprised me. That they did it that way. I mean,
I kind of like that he wasn't tied to every one of these guys.
Right. I mean, it gave a new, fresher perspective. So they've went on and changed the coaching staff. Because up until yesterday, it had the old coaching staff there. Well, now the new coaching staff is up there now. Well, who's ever new now? Like the guys that are in new positions to be coaches now. So.
No, Barry, I'm with you. I think, and that is an interesting point to note when it comes to that.
Yeah, it's changing. Offensive coordinators now, Brian. I mean, everything is everything right now. So and the new coaches they have as far as in different positions now, guys that have been accelerated or brought up through the ranks and that are there. So.
Yeah, no question. All right, so Desai gets hired. So his history is last year he was the assistant head coach and defensive coach with the Seahawks. Before that, he spent 9 years with the Bears. Last couple as the defensive coordinator. And it runs a scheme where it's not really absolutely defined. It's kind of a hybrid 3-4 base zone. It's kind of what he likes to do. It's the Vic Fangio school of coaching. But let me give you some numbers here. So in Desai's year as the defensive coordinator under Matt Nagy, the Bears blitzed 123 times. That was 29th in the league. But 11 times more than the Eagles that year, who ranked 31st. Last year in Seattle, again, he wasn't the defensive coordinator, but they blitzed just 95 times, second fewest in the league. By comparison, 51 times fewer than the Eagles. The Eagles were 17th, by the way. They were almost right there in the middle in terms of blitzing, just to put it in perspective. In Fangio's 3 years as the Broncos head coach, and again, Desai comes from the Fangio branch, Denver blitzed 400 times, fourth fewest in the NFL. I bring all this up because this is not going to be Jim Johnson. It's not going to be Buddy or Bud Carson. It's going to be 3-4 base, mixing it up, zone coverage, too high safety shell. Coverage is geared towards not giving up the big play, just because that's who he is. And that's what he believes in. Now, will he put his own twist on stuff? Yes, I think so. And you always have to take into account the personnel that you have. Yes, you do. And that dictates sometimes what you do. But I think at the core, this is what Nick Sirianni wants, what Howie Roseman wants. This is how the Eagles want their defense to be, not a blitz-heavy defense.
I can't get too jacked up about this hiring, and that's not a knock against him, but just based on his history, when you look at when he was the coordinator, and I mentioned this to you guys yesterday, I understand why they didn't blitz much in Seattle, because they didn't have the defensive personnel. But I ran off the names. They had a defense, especially at the linebacking position when he was in Chicago with Roquan Smith and Khalil Mack. And when you tell me those numbers, I can't get excited about that. I'd have been blitzing the heck out of them dudes all day long, to be honest with you. Now, and when you talk about playing zone defense, I've never been a big fan of zone. I like to see guys play more press coverage, more bump and run, man to man. You know, like a Chargers defense plays. You know, I'm not against the hire, because you got to hire somebody. I'm just like, I'm in wait and see mode, and we'll talk about him from now until the season starts, as well as everything else going on with this team. But I'm very down the middle right now on this hire until I see what he does implement it. Because from what you're telling me, another defensive coordinator with a philosophy, not a scheme. I don't want to see a lot of zone. I don't want to see my DBs playing 5 to 7 yards consistently off of receivers. I've seen enough of that.
Let me give you a quote from Vic Fangio when he was asked, when he got, and this is from Ruben Frank's story, NBC Sports Philadelphia. I want to give Ruben credit for this. But when Fangio was hired in in Miami, this is what he had to say regarding blitzing. Okay. Quote, "If you have to, that's not a great feeling. You want to do it when you want to on your own terms." Look, I agree with that, man. If you're blitzing all the time, you got nothing. You're desperate.
I say all the time.
No, I'm not. I know you're not saying that.
Yeah.
I'm saying, like, for people who want him, for one a coordinator blitzing all the time, you better have unbelievable coverage men, first of all, and there is a lot of risk to it. But Barrett, I'm curious where you're at with this.
I'm trying to, because I want to explain. I want to really explain what, what's going to happen. Kind of like what you see in Pittsburgh right now. And to me, Pittsburgh is a pretty good defense. But the basis of when you have a 3-4 defense, and why they say it's it looks like they're blitzing a lot, but they're not. They're always sending 4 guys to the quarterback. They're always rushing 4 guys. But the way conceptually how you got to look at it is on the 3-4 system, you got a guy that's head up on the nose, head up on the center, the nose guard. Then on the outside on the tackles, you have defensive ends. And if you already know this on the stream, I'm just, for people that may not know what 3-4 is and why you think why bringing pressure doesn't always look like blitzing and pressure. It may look like it, but it's not. You got 2 guys head up that are defensive ends on the tackles, line up, head up on the tackles. And then you had defensive linebackers on the outside of them. One may be over a tight end, one may be over an overhang or nobody over him. Now, what makes that defense look like it's blitzing, they're only going to bring 4. So when they say bring 4, it might be both defensive ends, the nose, and an outside defensive linebacker. They'll bring them and drop the other linebacker on the opposite side. Or they might bring the nose, bring the Mike linebacker, bring a defensive end, and bring the other defensive end. They're only sending 4, but it looks like a blitz because the linebacker came. So it's not going to look like, to the offensive line, it looks like a blitz to us. Mm-hmm. So that's where you get a lot of the confusion, because when you have that, the defense being even meaning you have guys over the tackles, one guy over the nose, 2 linebackers that are lined up at linebacker depth over the guards, and 2 outside linebackers. So to us, it looks like it's the same, but they're bringing 4 guys from different places. So that's why it looks like a blitz. That's what's confusing to an offensive line, because you don't know who's going to come and where they're coming from. So that's why it looks like a blitz, but it's not necessarily a blitz. They're only bringing 4, but it's confusing on what 4 they're going to bring.
Yeah, I like that's what I like.
That's what it is.
I like the Desai, and Gannon was the same way. It's hard to game plan for that. It's not, and I get it. It's not the blitz that everybody wants, but it's like it's a tough. You can't just say this is what they're doing. They don't do one certain thing. They're like an amoeba.
That's it right there, Rob. That's it right there, because you don't know where they're coming from, where these 4 are coming from, and when they do bring a 5th guy, it usually hits home because you're not accounting for that guy, because you see these different ways they're coming. That's why they call it a zone blitz as opposed to a blitz, because they're blitzing people. They're bringing people from different parts of that box. And it's confusing as hell to an offensive line, because they can bring the 7 guys,
right,
and you don't know which one is coming because it's even. You look at the defense, it's even. So all these guys can come. All of them can come. You just don't know who's coming. And it messes up the number count, not just for the offensive line, but the tight end has to know where he has to go. The running back has to know. The quarterback has to know where he's coming from. So that's what makes, a 3-4 so hard to pick up, and zone blitzing so hard to account for who's coming.
Okay, I will say a contrast to that is let's look at Kansas City's defense. Now, they were a blitz defense. Spagnuolo let you know he was coming at you all day.
Yep.
And he did it with a bunch of kids.
Yep.
Okay. And he didn't back off one from start to finish. They did not back off. It was predicated on, we don't want to get the sack. We want to make a quarterback do something he doesn't want to do in a hurry. If you look at the sack total, I think it was like 50 something maybe. Okay.
Yeah.
So basically, his concept worked as well. I'm not saying I want a defensive coordinator who will blitz all day, but I'm saying the way he strategically blitzed all season long, and look at the wealth of quarterbacks his defense faced all year, and his formula worked as well. Mm-hmm. Fangio is a good coordinator. He got fired in Denver. Why did he get fired in Denver? Okay, we have to ask that question. Don't know. We have to ask some people that, number one. Number two, Spagnuolo's concept worked for him. And I can't get over the fact he did it with a bunch of kids. He put a bunch of kids in strenuous situations from start to finish. He said, look, you're going to get beat, but we got to keep doing what we do. And he did. They won 14 regular season games. They won 20 games on the season and hoisted that trophy, doing it that way. That defensive personnel was nowhere near close to what the Eagles had.
Well,
but he stuck to his guns.
Well, absolutely. You're right about that. But one thing you must have are some boss linebackers.
Yes. When
you're running this, you got to have boss linebackers. See, you can run those type of sets when you have boss linebackers. What got Arizona? Arizona had the blitz because they didn't have the personnel really to run that system. They didn't have a boss nose guard, even though they had, J.J. Watt and that other kid on the other side. You need a nose guard in the middle of that defense that can control that defense, whether it's passing and collapsing the pocket by himself or holding up the run. I had Casey Hampton there. You know what I'm saying? You look at Ray Lewis. He had Goose sitting right there, or Sam Adams sitting there. Mm-hmm. You got to have a boss nose tackle who can control the middle of that defense. I think the Eagles do have a boss guy. He's got to grow into being a boss guy. He's got to grow into being a stud in the middle, because you got to be a stud, one stud guy in the middle. That's why Hargraves got paid, because he was a stud in the middle of that defense. He played nose. You have to be a stud when you're in there, because you have to control both A-gap by yourself. and control the center, you're getting double teamed every play because there's nobody that they have to go off on. Both guards are free, so they can double team you whenever they need to. Mm-hmm. You got to have a stud in the middle of that defense. Let me say it one more time, people. If Davis does not become a stud, we will get our ass kicked all year long in the middle of that defense because there's nobody that can get up on those. If you're not a stud there, they don't concentrate on you. They can get up on those linebackers and blow them out.
Can Milton Williams be that?
No.
Okay.
No,
so you have a
defensive end. He's a defensive end. He's going to be over the. You're going to have guys like you're going to have Milton Williams over a tackle. You're going to have guys like Sweat over a tackle, Barnett over a tackle. They're going to be like an Aaron Smith type of players. They've got to be good too. They got to be studs. But I mean, I see Hassan Reddick as being a Suggs. I see Hassan Reddick as being a TJ Watt. You know what I'm saying? It's gonna bode well for him. He's gonna have more sacks than he had this year. But Karan Johnson and Patrick Johnson, they got to come out of their shield. They got to be able to ball on the outside also. Derek Barnett's gonna have to be ball on the outside. So this is a system that is tough to run if you don't have a really, really good nose guard. We got to have a guy that's going to go out there. I think we have that. We have it in Wilson. I think Wilson can do it. And Tuipulotu, it's got to be a stud also.
So that leads Barrett very well into something that a story that just has blown up today in regards to the draft. Jalen Carter, who was Jordan Davis's teammate a couple years back at Georgia, and a guy who was considered by some to be the #1 overall pick, that talented. There's a lot going on right now with Jalen Carter. So if you're not familiar with the story, sadly, there was a Georgia player and a member of the staff who passed away in a car accident back in January. Okay, terrible story. Right by campus.
January.
It was this past, 2 months ago. January 15th. Okay, in fact, the staffer was a young lady named Chandler LaCroix, who passed away, and Devin Willock, it was one of his teammates who passed away as well. Now, the initial story was the young lady who was driving too fast, lost control of the car. It was a 1-car accident, and that's why they passed away. Okay, reckless driving and all that kind of stuff. But there has been a warrant, an arrest warrant, obtained by the Associated Press, which alleges that Jalen Carter was racing with that car that crashed the night of the crash. He was racing his Jeep Trackhawk with them, and that's how the crash occurred. Carter was questioned about that night, and said that he was, way behind and it wasn't right there with them, came up on it and all this other stuff. So he's about to be taken in on this thing. He's going to be charged with reckless driving and racing in connection with the crash that killed the staff members. Now, I don't know how all this plays out. I know there's they're both misdemeanors, the charges here. And I'm not trying to be cold here because you're talking about two people who lost their lives, but there is an impact here on the draft where Jalen Carter may fall, and the Eagles who are sitting there at 10, he may be there, and there might be a question of, do you take him with some of this baggage? Again, I am not in any way, shape, or form trying to just minimize what the real important thing is that two people lost their lives. Okay. I'm just telling you from a football perspective, you can sort of look at this from an Eagle standpoint.
Well, he was supposed to sit down and meet with team representatives at 10:30 this morning, and all of a sudden that was put on the kibosh, understandably so. Right. If I read the report correctly, initially he told police officers he heard a crash from a apartment or something like that.
Oh, I didn't know that part of it.
Yeah, okay. he heard it from, and then when they pressed him further, he said, "Yeah, well, I was driving in a car alongside of them." So, first of all, why would you lie like that, dude? This is your career we're talking about here.
That's why he lied.
Yeah, and Derek, a little bit further on that, the evidence, according to the details of this thing that was obtained, demonstrated that both vehicles switched lanes, drove in the center lane, drove opposite lanes to travel, overtook motorists, drove at high rates of speed in an apparent attempt to outdistance one another. So it sounds like they weren't on some quiet road by themselves. Not that even makes it good, but they were swerving in and out of traffic.
They were in downtown Athens,
which could have killed however many people. You know what I mean? Right. They weren't on some deserted, some road in some middle of town of nowhere. This is right where the campus is. The campus is in Athens. It's not good.
It reminds me a lot of a situation down in Florida that happened before my time with the Eagles with a great player in Jerome Brown.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
And he had his nephew in the car with him.
He did. And it was a rainy day. I did a whole story on this for NBC Sports Philadelphia.
Had a brand new Corvette. Just got a brand new Corvette.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep. Incredibly sad.
I had to go down to his hometown when I was at NBC and with a producer, Mark Jordan, and we did a story. We walked the actual crash site where it happened. We talked to family members, and I'm like, I just had an eerie feeling about doing that story. I'm thinking, man, and it was like a little ridge that he went over. I'm thinking he was on the road by himself basically, but I'm thinking, why?
Well, no, the nephew was in the car.
That's what I'm saying, but I'm saying it was not like it was a busy road. It was like a back road, And I'm thinking, why?
Sad.
Why?
First of all, a track hawk is. I mean, that's
what is that, Barry? Is that like a souped up?
It's a Jeep with a Hellcat engine in it. Hellcat is Dodge's one of their probably their second fastest engine that they make. That Dodge makes, So Dodge makes the Hemi. It's probably their second fastest engine that they make. The Elephant is the number one engine, the fastest engine they make. And then you got the Dodge, the Dodge Demon, and all those stuff. So the Hellcat engine is a beast. I got one in my I have a Dodge Magnum that I have it in. So it can rip things apart. It's a very fast Jeep. It's a small Jeep. It's it's a Cherokee with a souped up race car engine in it.
Okay. I didn't. Yeah, that's good. That's good information. It's good information to know what's going on here. And the car that crashed, the estimate speeds of 104 miles an hour. So, whatever.
In town.
Yeah. So I don't know where this ends up. I don't know what happens here. I don't know how it impacts, where Jalen ends up. But you could have some teams that didn't think they would have a decision to make on him. And I'm not even talking about what he does on the field, but just character-wise, they're going to have to make a decision, and that includes the Eagles.
Well, let me put things in perspective. My draft, I was projected to go mid to late first round. But my draft got all mixed and messed up because it's the Warren Sapp draft.
Right.
And I can remember we had it was 12 guys that were supposed to go way ahead of me that dropped. And when they dropped, that made me drop because everybody tested positive for weed.
Okay.
And I can remember, when we first checked in, that a bunch of guys were in because they thought we had tested before we went to the combine. Okay. We had tested, for whatever. So, he had to, piss in the cup, everything, yada, yada, yada. Got there, and we ended up having to test again. And 12 guys got popped for weed.
So in other words, they knew they had to be clean before the draft because they were going to get tested. Then they thought we're good. They got
tested,
right,
and smoked up,
and boom,
and got popped because they went and smoked before they got tested again.
Okay,
so that's why Sapp was supposed to be a top 5 pick. He was that dominant. He was unbelievable. Yeah. So I mean, just Mamula got drafted one or two spots before.
Mamula was before Sapp. Yeah, for sure. Yep.
And Mamula's one of the first guys to test, to go out there and just train specifically for the combine test, the 40-yard dash, the high jump, the broad jump, the drills. He started that. You know what I'm saying? His numbers were off the chart because he went out prepared for it. Me, I was just preparing for a 40-yard dash. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Barrett. Mamula, I think 13th, 12th. I think he went 12th or 13th. 12th, I think. So everybody got moved down, and guys that were supposed to be drafted got drafted.
Sapp 12, Mamula 7.
See, yeah. So I mean, I knew it was around there. So his combine numbers got him drafted. Sapp's performance got him drafted still in the first round. He dropped 12 spots.
Wow.
Well, you know, because of that.
You went 49th overall for people who are wondering.
Yeah, I'm in the second round.
Second round. Yep.
So crazy. Well, actually 58. I went 58.
Was it 58?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you know better than I do. Yeah, I'm sorry, 58. Why did I say 49? Yeah, there you go. Barrett Robbins went 49, the center, who ended up having some issues in the Super Bowl. But yeah.
Right.
Wow, Cordell Stewart went 2 picks after you.
Yep. So and then Bobby Taylor was the first. He was like the first or second pick in the second round too, wasn't
Bobby?
He?
Yep. He was a high second round pick.
Yeah. Me and him went in the second round.
Yep.
Then Chris T. Jones went after me, and then
Bobby Taylor was 50th.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, he's a little farther down.
Yeah. So that was it. Yeah. And again, I don't know. I'm sure more details will come out on this, and
it's a shame, man. It's a shame.
Awful. It's an awful story. You know what I mean? It's just an awful. 2 young people passed. It's just awful. Man, you hate hearing this kind of stuff. But
I mean, I don't think it necessarily has anything like manslaughter or anything like that. It'll probably just be reckless driving, something like that. 2
misdemeanors right now with what
Yeah, but you know, teams like the Eagles that take so much pride in character.
See? That's what I was trying to get to.
Character.
Do you draft in spite of character?
Because he flat out lied initially, and then when all the footage of all the cameras, don't people understand there's cameras everywhere now? There's camera everywhere you go.
Yeah. It's always a camera phone, a camera, a ring, or whatever. You know what I'm saying? A street light. I mean, you can't get away with anything. You can't get away with blowing your nose without somebody seeing it.
He's projected, guys. I'm looking at one of the mock drafts from CBS Sports that I'm looking at. He was
number
projected,
1 pick.
Well, yeah, or 3rd.
Yeah.
So, yeah. They had him go to the Cardinals. Is what they had him. But yeah, listen, I hear you.
Well, you know, G Meta, you know, say accountability, character. That means a lot in this organization. They will just assume not draft a guy because of character flaws than bring a guy into the fold.
Yeah.
And that's the gold standard that you know, that's what the owner, you know, prides himself in. He prides himself in being the gold standard of the NFL. You know what I'm saying? Like look at me, the way he handled Malcolm and the whole situation with him, you know, how he allowed him to use the Eagles platform the way he did. You know, there have been countless things where, you know, that this whole organization as a whole have you know, been in the forefront of helping players be who they are, you know what I'm saying, and voice their opinions in certain ways. So Mr. Lurie, you know, he's a stand-up guy. Would he draft that guy? If I was the GM, I ain't gonna lie. I just got to watch a film on him. I like I said, I just got the hookup now. I can watch all the film I want to watch on guys. I just looked at him. Jalen, what? Beast.
Mm-hmm.
And we're talking misdemeanors versus getting a guy that's going to be a bona fide star.
Keep in mind, we still have until when's the draft? April, whatever it is. It was
late
still
April.
Month and change.
Vlad, what you trying to make me do, man? Come on,
to have
man.
more come out, you know, and find out.
Right.
We'll have a better idea if there's how much more. But he's considered by many the biggest lock. Like there's question marks with a lot of other guys who have a high ceiling. Bryce Young, people are worried about his size, you know, Stroud, whatever. They say that this guy's the most pro-ready to come in and dominate.
He can come in right now, right now.
Cal Bundy brought up a point in our chat that I was going to mention a few moments ago about, you know, as much as the Eagles want high character, they did give Michael Vick a second chance.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's what I'm saying, a second chance.
Yeah.
But you need to be convinced that this guy's, you know,
rehabilitated. Yeah.
Yeah. And
I mean, look at what happened with Henry Ruggs. Look at it. Look at what happened with him in a car crash. Cost him his career. As talented as he is, you know, look at how many players we see that have had multiple drug issues, domestic violence issues, and teams out there will give them second and third chances. Henry Ruggs was a phenomenal talent. Do you see anybody knocking at his door yet?
I mean, well, he's still in jail.
I know, but I'm saying, well, you know, there are a lot of teams that don't want that kind of attention.
Yeah. Well, look at Doug right now. Doug right now is dealing with the receiver from Atlanta and trying to make sure he clears.
Calvin Ridley.
He clears and he gets reinstated back into the NFL. You know, he's going to take a chance on him. Yeah. I mean, you know, you want a second chance. You want a guy, you know, that do it. I can see, you know, and it pains me. It's going to stick me right in the gut that, you know, what's going to happen. That kid's going to go to Dallas, and it's going to piss me off that we got to play him twice a year.
That's him and Michael Parsons
would piss me off. You know what I'm saying? That would happen, but they don't care about character in Dallas.
Yeah,
so they would do that.
Oh,
they would
in
do
a second.
That.
In a second, Jerry would draft him. In a second,
no question.
Wouldn't even be a thought. Yeah, no, it happens every year, guys. We see it. To me, there's some little things like some dude who's in a gas mask smoking weed. I could care less. There's stuff like that they try to
damage right now with the Texans.
Right. And then there's other things. This is obviously a much different story than that, but you know, it happens every year. And by the way, something else is going to come down the line. Something else is going to happen draft night. People looking to hurt other people. I'm not saying this is that situation, but there are agents and organizations that have agendas and family members, sadly, that have agendas.
Hey, Barry, the good thing is for you is Dallas picks 27. So there's, even if this kid drops, I don't think there's anybody who will let him slide to 27.
No. And then, and Chris D, you make a point. You know what I'm saying? But the locker room, it would be affected, and she's not willing to pay that price. I feel you. But there are teams like Dallas who wouldn't care. They wouldn't care, at all about
that. Look at how many shady characters they've brought in as free agents, draft picks. They don't care.
Nope.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
It means something in our locker room, and I like the fact that it means something in the Eagles locker room to have high character. The fact, hell, they went with a $34 million cap casualty to get a bad seed out of their locker room.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy. Yes,
Carson Wentz. Yep.
That's crazy. That's the first time ever $34 million is sitting there in dead money that a player's not even in the locker room.
Woo, man. Yep.
Right.
Mr. Rudy Poo brought up a good point too. Hey, Raiders are taking with the 7th pick. The Raiders historically are known for bringing in thugs, man. I'm telling you. Man.
Yep. All right, let's step aside for a minute here, and we'll continue with the Eagles discussion and a little bit more NFL as well. A couple things. The Eagles are pushing for two things, rule changes wise. So we'll get into that, and then there's a lot of stuff happening around the NFL, as you could imagine, this time of year at the Combine. So don't go anywhere. Derek Gunn, Barrett Brooks, Rob Ellis, Sports Take, JAKIB Sports YouTube Network. Let's hit that like button. All right, let's talk about Pro Action Restoration. Yes, Pro Action Restoration. If you have a home, you have a business, and you've experienced the unfortunate issue of fire, smoke, mold damage, you name it, they can handle it. Pro Action Restoration is on call 24 hours, 7 days a week to assist. I know I've personally gone through it. It was water damage in my case at my parents' house. I called them on a Saturday. They got right over there. The crew was amazing. They were professional, clean. The price was reasonable. Pro Action Restoration is licensed, bonded, and fully insured, and they've been serving the tri-state area for more than 2 decades, and they will work in conjunction with your insurance company as well. Again, it could be water, it could be fire, it could be smoke, it could be mold remediation. You name it, they can handle it. Give them a call, 610-623-3760, 610-623-3760, or online at proactionrestoration.com. That's proactionrestoration.com.